future trends, deep insights, industry leaders. This is the iGaming Next podcast with your host, Pierre Lind.
27, yes, 1,300 accounts with 27 million followers, correct.
Okay, cool. So what is it that, so you mentioned it briefly, so what is your definition between a micro-influencer and sort of what we normally define as an influencer? Is it size of following? Is it sort of, you know, the professionalism? Is it like if they're local or national? Like how do you define that?
Yeah, I think that there's a number of factors. I think size of followers is definitely a consideration. If you have 20 million followers, you most likely are a celebrity. I think it also has to do with who your demographics are that are your followers. Is it local based? Are you based just in the Pittsburgh area? Or are you a celebrity on TV and you have a national following? I think that's a huge distinction between a micro-influencer and a macro one. And then additionally, I think you kind of your ability to at the time, monetize traffic. A macro-influencer has 10 million followers is getting offers for brand deals weekly, if not daily. Whereas micro-influencers in most circumstances are really just targeted local demographics that are very specific to one niche thing, whatever it is. In our case, it's mostly sports teams.
Okay. You also mentioned what we spoke before the podcast, that you're sort of running an incubator kind of program as part of SGG as well. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like when SGG is working with our influencers, it's always our goal to create kind of an altruistic environment where we're both helping each other out. The thing about a lot of these micro-influencers is that they don't really have the access to graphic designers and editors and ways to kind of improve their content, where SGG's kind of built an in-house team where we have 5 graphic designers and we have video editors and we have legal firms to review content to basically take the micro-influencers content and improve it and kind of take it to that next level where they can create custom graphics around their posts and they can create video content that's professionally edited with mics and everything. So that's kind of an area where when we're working with these smaller accounts, we try to benefit them as much as we can.
Yeah. So. Well, that's a great idea, and I guess also like it's tough out there. I think if you want to be a creator, I mean, of course you do it for your own passion. I guess if you're following the Steelers, for example, like it's something you're passionate about. It just sort of let's say comes natural to you to voice your opinion or share the stats or the facts or whatever. But at the same time, I think it can also be a fairly sort of lonely journey to some extent to be a creator. Like you're very much on your own. Like you have your own accounts, your own device, whatever it is. And if I understand you correctly, what you're doing as well is sort of, you know, taking them under the wings, introducing them to the other micro-influencers, and they can sort of feed off each other and brainstorm ideas and stuff like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a very it's underestimated how difficult it actually is to become even a micro-influencer, let alone an influencer. The amount of work that goes into it and the amount of consistency that's needed. And to post, most of these accounts are posting for over a year with no success. They're not getting the likes. They're not getting the engagement. And it takes kind of that extra give that you have to just be committed to being consistent with your postings. And SGG likes to kind of expedite that process with our influencers, where we give them access to tools that can help their account to grow and kind of take it to that next level.
Okay, great. All right, so now you have 1,300 micro-influencers, combined following of 27 million, and to combine as a group, you now suddenly have a voice towards the large advertisers or the large operators in this space, so to speak. So if I'm a FanDuel or a DraftKings, like how does that work for me then? Like as in, you know, if I'm interested in tapping into your network effectively, like how is the experience for me? Do I have an online platform I interact with? Do I call Troy? How does it work?
Yeah, so we've really worked very hard to create what we like to call a turnkey system. So from content creation through campaign construction, through distribution, through our influencers, we've created kind of an A to Z service where when we work with the FanDuel, what will happen is I'll work with the social media coordinator, I'll work with the affiliates coordinator, and I'll ask them, hey, listen, what are your goals? What are you looking to get out of this? You're launching a new sportsbook in New York, or this state just went live, you want to drive customers? Or are you launching a new podcast show that you want to bring awareness to and you want people to find out about your new host? I'll kind of talk with them and figure out kind of what their KPIs are, what goals they're looking to hit. And then I'll work with my team because really all we do is work on social media. We run about 15 campaigns a day. So we have a lot of experience in this field. And I'll work with my team to create custom campaigns for our partner. So in this case, it would be FanDuel. I'll create a custom campaign with a custom graphic designed around a new podcast show they're launching. And then I'll create a campaign targeted to just New York sports gamblers, trying to drive them to their sports book. And I'll work with FanDuel's team to decide, okay, this graphic looks great. We want to edit this a little bit. Let's change this language. And once we do that, we actually create the campaigns themselves with the text and the links and the compliance language and everything that goes into it. And then the last step is really just to tap into SGG's influencer network and to post these campaigns and these graphics to millions and millions of followers. One thing that I think is very unique about our platform and really about micro-influencers as a whole is that because they're focused just on posting Pittsburgh Steelers content, for instance, right? Their markets are very niche and they're very, very targeted to specific states and specific regions, which for anyone listening from Europe and in America, that's extremely important because sports gambling is legalized on a state-by-state basis. Yeah. So FanDuel doesn't want to be promoting in California when California is not legal yet. They want to be promoting in Maryland and in New York, states that have recently gone live and they can actually convert gamblers. So micro-influencers really are very specific and targeted, and that's extremely valuable to these operators.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? Because if brands wants to work with sort of traditional influencers, or if you will, or celebrities that has a large following, if you come to them as a clothing brand, that is very easy. They can post, they can do videos, whatever they do, and they can promote. It doesn't matter where the end consumer is, so they can really leverage their full, I don't know, let's say 20 million following or whatever it might be. If an online sports betting or iGaming brand comes to that same influencer and says, hey, I want you to promote my brand, suddenly that creator has a challenge, right? Because they can do post or video or whatever, but they will have a lot of waste in that funnel because maybe 80 to 90% of the people who actually view and consume that content are not able to sign up because they're not sitting in the state, right? So is that a massive edge as a micro-influencer community, or what's your take on this? Yeah,
no, that's spot on. I wouldn't say it's because the reality is that there's advantages to both sides of the equation. For branding purposes, it's great to have a national influencer where you're spreading the FanDuel or DraftKings image and brand in California and other states, because eventually they will go legal and they will want to drive sports gamblers. But from solely a client acquisition standpoint and bringing sports gamblers to your sportsbook or bringing people who can interact with your product, micro-influencers, I believe, have a huge advantage because they are targeted, they are localized, and the majority, 80, 90% of their followers are based in kind of that target market that the operators are looking to hit. So yeah, in the sports gambling space, there's definitely a lot of credence and a lot that goes into micro-influencers.
Cool. All right, and just in case anyone is not familiar with the sort of the state of the union in the U.S., Troy, correct me if I'm wrong here, but today we have 30 states where sports betting is now legal and allowed, and we have 6 states where iGaming is allowed, and then there is speculation around when New York is going to bring iGaming online. Some people say next year, some people say it will take forever. And then somewhere in the far, far distance, I think we have California sitting where we have the vote coming up here in November, I believe. It's coming up soon, right?
It's coming up, this month, correct. The speculation was supposed to be that it was going to get passed, but that's looking very bleak, to say the least. I think most of the operators have actually even rolled over in California to admitted that it's not going to pass this time around. So
yeah. All right. So the current landscape is 30 states for sports betting and 6 states for iGaming. But one of the things we spoke about is almost sort of like the changing landscape of marketing and sort of traditional media versus influencers or micro-influencers. I mean, we're seeing we're seeing Steak with Drake, we're seeing Better and Jake Paul. We're outside of gaming, we have Mr. Beast doing chocolate bars and burger restaurants, and I don't know what, sort of becoming taking over everyone's lifestyle to some extent. So there's definitely such an interesting space sitting here in the influencer space. But what's your view on the current state of play, like traditional media versus influencers? Like, is influencers a must-have in anyone's marketing strategy today? Is it only relevant to some brands? What are your thoughts?
Well, I believe it's a must-have. I'm also definitely biased because that's kind of the space I'm in. That being said, I think in the U.S., what's really happening right now is the market is starting to mature a little bit. It's no longer the first or second inning of sports gambling in the U.S. I'd say it's more like the third or fourth or fifth. And when the U.S. launched, for anyone in Europe, really what the name of the game was, spend as much money as possible to try to gain market share. We don't care how much TV ads cost. We don't care how much radio ads cost. Spend. It doesn't matter. Just bring in customers. And in the last, I'd say 3 to 6 months, that idea has really changed. And sportsbooks are starting to look at profitability of their players and lifetime value.
That's the profitability, right? It's a big buzzword right now in the U.S. space. Yeah. And to that point, the idea of spending millions and hundreds of millions of dollars on TV ads doesn't seem as profitable anymore, and it doesn't seem as sustainable. Now, looking at influencer marketing, and more specifically micro-influencer marketing, one of the amazing things about it is that it's so unbelievably cost-effective. You can promote to millions and millions of targeted followers for really pennies on the dollar of what it would cost to run comparable TV ads or radio ads in the space. So when you're looking at something that like micro-influencers and like social media marketing, it's cost effective, which means it's sustainable. It's something that you can do every single day, again and again and again. And I think one example of this, there's two great ones, but one I'll focus on is look at Barstool Sports and their take on marketing the Barstool Sportsbook for Penn National. I think that Penn's acquisition of Barstool was brilliant because when you spend $1 billion on TV ads, after all those ads have run, what do you have to show for it? Yeah, you have your customers that you gain from it, but you have nothing to continue marketing. You have to start from zero and keep pumping money into this. Whereas you look at Barstool and they have this massive following of 60+ million sports fans, and Penn acquiring them enabled Penn that after 2 years of marketing the Barstool Sportsbook, they still have access to millions and millions of sports fans for basically nothing. Yeah. And that creates a cost-effective, sustainable way to continue marketing their product. Absolutely. I think they have like 90+ shows running concurrently, right?
Unbelievable.
If it's not higher now. So it's a massive content play, and if we contrast those two up against each other, sort of, the traditional media, here's a big check, give me something, exposure and in return, versus sort of the content play. I think also there is so much to be said around sort of tapping into the consumers, not just those few seconds the TV ad runs, but actually being part of their day-to-day life. Like it's part of the culture. It's ingrained. Yep. It's a source of information. It's a community.
Like, it's a community.
It's part of your lifestyle, and it runs so much deeper into the consumer's life than a TV ad or a YouTube clip or whatever it might be. That said, there's also it's also a much bigger engine to get up and running, and it's a longer play, and it takes time, and it's difficult. And hats off for running 90+ concurrent shows and building that brand. So I think that's a tremendous example. I fully agree with you.
Yeah. I think Better is a great example as well. It's so new. It's really only been around for 3 to 4 months. But what's amazing about Better as a social media platform for sports gambling is that in the first 2 weeks, Better's social media platform had more followers than FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, and Fanatics combined in 2 weeks. Yeah. And that's we're talking about publicly traded billion-dollar companies. And within 2 weeks, this social media brand with Jake Paul and Joey Levy were able to quadruple the amount of followers that these companies have. It really shows the value of influencers and of this like community, I guess, that's being built around sports gambling in the U.S.
Yeah. I have to ask, Troy, are you related somehow? You're sharing the same surname, right? Jake Paul and Troy Paul. Is your brother? Come on, be honest.
Okay, funny story is my brother's name is actually Jake Paul. Swear to God.
Oh, really?
I know. I swear to God. So my family gets like so much mail and calls saying, "Are you Jake Paul's brother? Are you this? Are you that?" Maybe long lost. Who knows?
Same amount of tattoos as well, Troy, or what was?
Same amount of what?
Same amount of tattoos on your brother as on
No, not yet. But
okay. All right, fair enough. Cool. No, so yeah, definitely there's definitely a tremendous sort of potential power sitting here in the influencer micro-influencer space. I fully agree with that. Is there also a negative sitting in the influencer space? Is there a dark side of influencer marketing as a medium? You know, we speak. I think in Europe we have maybe taken progressed a bit further down the path in terms of like we have been speaking about responsible gambling and all sorts of policies, regulations for a decade soon, and I think in the US that's definitely prevalent as well, but maybe not as far ahead as yet as in Europe. So. Fake streaming, minors, all these kind of buzzwords that are potentially negatives around the influencer space. What are your thoughts on that? How do influencers navigate that if they want to work with the online sports betting or iGaming space?
Yeah, I wouldn't classify it really as a dark side, I'd say, of influencers, but there definitely is hurdles that have to be overcome and issues that need to be dealt with when you're using and utilizing influencer marketing. I think the biggest one that comes to mind from our business and day to day is that when you're working with influencers, especially on a mass scale, like we're working with 1,300 of these daily, making sure that the posts and the text and the graphics are all compliant and include responsible gaming language and 21 plus, and are being kind of phrased around not targeting minors and focusing on the people who are of age and can responsibly gamble, is something that is it's really important to us, and it takes a lot of our time. When you're dealing with influencers, the majority of them don't understand gaming compliance language because that's not really their business. Yeah. And it's our job as a marketing company, and it's also the operator's job to really kind of regulate the content they're posting and ensure that it is compliant and it is being presented in the right way. That is definitely I guess you would say kind of a negative of influencer marketing that has to be overcome. Yeah,
and recently we've seen a lot of movement on Twitch, and we'll speak a bit more about that. But one of the main challenges with Twitch is, at least as per today, there is no option to do age gating as such as a creator. Yep. So what is it? Is it 13? I believe is the lowest age they can register on Twitch. But as a creator, you don't have the same options as you do on YouTube and other platforms where you can specifically restrict it to a plus 18 or plus 21 audience. How is it on the social media platforms today? And are there any platforms that your community uses more than others, or how do they think about sort of not? They might have creatives that says plus 21, but at the same time they might have people sitting at home seeing the feed that might not be plus 21. How do you handle that?
Yeah, I mean it's always something to be considered. There isn't necessarily a way currently on Twitter and Instagram to age verify what accounts are looking at this type of content. That being said, it's about the actual content you're posting and how you're phrasing it and the terminology you're using to emphasize it towards a more adult demographic and make it kind of not attractive to minors. That's really the focus that we have and what we're trying to do in the U.S.
Yeah, I agree, and I guess the influencers themselves. I mean, if they're at a certain age, and like you say, the way they talk, the topics they bring up, I mean, if you're not within the adult target audience, you wouldn't find these influencers appealing. right, by its nature. So I guess there's some sort of organic.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no way to fully divert anyone who's not 21 from seeing this type of content. Just the same way, like, people who are not 21 watch TV and watch football, and there are ads coming up about sports gambling companies, etc. But the terminology that you use and the content you create can be more focused on a more mature audience, and I find that one effective way to kind of deter minors from seeing this type of content.
Agreed. Okay. And we also spoke about briefly, sort of. So let's imagine we're an operator, we're a FanDuel or whoever it might be, DraftKings, and we work with influencers, and we see the power of it. We invest into it. We double down. We go full on. And then, so what we've seen over here in Europe as of late is that there is more and more jurisdictions that starts blocking any celebrity endorsements, which also includes influencers in many cases. So could there be an over-reliance or a danger on sort of over-relying on the influencer space as part of your marketing strategy, or is it more a matter of making the most of it? Making hay while the sun shines. Yeah, no,
I think it's important to diversify your marketing methods and your revenue streams in any business, influencer marketing included. I do think it is the most cost-effective and sustainable way to market your product. That being said, I don't think every operator should go out and only focus on influencer marketing. That is it. It's important to have different ways to spread your word and your branding and your image. And an example of kind of diversification on our end is us getting more into content production and creating a podcast division and creating shows that are based around more than just driving sports gambling customers to an operator. It's more about the sports space and what's going on inside of that community. That's us diversifying how our business is run. And although I think it's an unbelievable method in the U.S. to market, and it's extremely cost effective, I wouldn't recommend any operator to go out there and put every single dollar they have solely into influencer marketing.
Yeah, no, fully agreed. All right, and if we zoom out a little bit and look at sort of social media overall, first of all, inside this online sports betting iGaming space, what would you say is the hottest social media channels for if you want to work with that space? Like, what's the top 3 channels that you must work with today to be attractive in this space?
Yeah, I mean, the fun thing about social media is that it's still young and it's still changing every day, and there's constantly new platforms popping up and new ideas and new ways to leverage marketing. I would say right now, at least for our business, Twitter reigns supreme, just because it creates a platform where you can put in text that users can see, and you can include links to whatever your product is, whether it's a new podcast you want people to watch, or a sportsbook where you're trying to sign gamblers up. It makes the whole process for the user to the end operator extremely seamless, and it's really effective for marketing. So Twitter, I'd say, is the most popular platform in terms of marketing with influencers today. Instagram is obviously huge as well. The idea for Instagram is more important, in my opinion, for branding and spreading the image and the brand of a company. It's not as effective for conversions, but the idea is most people are on Instagram. Most people are looking into sports gambling on Instagram, so it's extremely important. One new one that I've seen unbelievable growth out of in the last year is Discord. The idea of like a sports gambling community is growing every day, and there's becoming celebrities in that space, and people like Book It with Trent and Marco, who are gaining kind of this fan base around sports gambling. And they're starting to utilize Discord to provide kind of a unique way to connect with their fans on like kind of like a more intimate level, and to talk with them and be able to communicate with them. And with that comes an unbelievable method for marketing, because you have this very targeted, very dedicated, very specific community that is interacting with their content creator that they're following, and they would be very receptive, I'm sure, to the products that they're trying to push. So Discord, I think, is a young, exciting, up-and-coming platform for the sports gambling space.
Cool. I saw Netflix diving into that space as well, Discord, right, as well with their video game segment. And Twitter, number 1. Any Any predictions on what Mr. Elon Musk is going to do to the space, apart from charging $8 a month to get verified?
It's exciting. It's an exciting time with Elon buying Twitter. I think he mentioned, I saw some tweets about him mentioning that part of the Twitter verification badge, the $8, was to create kind of a fund to start compensating content creators, which I think for influencers is number one necessary. Like, the reason, in my opinion, that YouTube is such a big platform for content creators and they make so much money from it is because the content creators themselves get compensated. They get AdSense. They share in the kind of the honeypot that YouTube is generating. Whereas Twitter, unless you're doing a brand deal outside of Twitter, as a content creator, you're getting nothing. And I think that's unfair, and it kind of deters influencers from using Twitter as much. Whereas Elon, if he does create some type of a fund to share with these content creators, I think that's an exciting change for kind of the influencer market.
Yeah, it's definitely one to watch, that's for sure. I'm interested in you not mentioning TikTok in your top 3. What's your view on TikTok?
I was going to dive into it a little bit. TikTok is, again, another example of one of those young, up-and-coming platforms. My issue as a marketing company with TikTok right now is they make it very difficult to provide links and actually send a customer to an operator or whatever product they're looking to market. I think that's something where TikTok, as a company, will mature more, the same way that Instagram and Twitter did, and they will open up avenues to start posting links and driving traffic places. But as of right now, I think TikTok, from a content perspective, is growing massively. But from a marketing perspective, to actually get your product out to the masses, they make it very difficult to push that agenda currently. I think it will change in the future. Yeah.
I can imagine. And it's so another thing as well, like, we all know TikTok started as, teenage girls doing dance moves and dance videos and what have you. And, obviously that's years ago. And let's say the people who work with marketing on a daily perspective is fully aware of that and sort of the power. And it's, we've moved on significantly from that. However, within the gambling space, whenever you speak to a compliance officer or a head of legal or something like that, that image is still what pops up. Whenever you say TikTok, they absolutely see a 14-year-old girl doing a dance routine, or boy, whatever it might be.
Which makes my life hard when I'm getting interviewed by the regulators and try to convince them or show them the kind of the new world that is TikTok, that it's not just teenagers doing dances anymore.
Yeah, exactly. No, but it's such a good example of like how, like, because we are so regulation heavy, and the people we interact with there might not necessarily live on sort of the latest and greatest of where marketing is now. It's still that first image or that first sort of position that sticks in their mind, and I guess that's our job to convince them otherwise. But if we zoom out a little bit, so we spoke about the top channels, but sort of in general, social media as a marketing channel, how are we doing in 2022, soon 2023? Are we, are we starting to understand the space? Is there a lot more potential here? Like, how good are we as an industry to tap into the power of social media?
Yeah, I think there's been exponential growth in the sports gambling industry getting involved with social media in the last year. A year and a half ago, when I used to go to the gaming conferences in the U.S., social media wasn't even talked about. Now there's panels that are based around marketing through social media. So that's really exciting to see that I think the industry is heading in that direction. That being said, I still think we're at a very early stage of the utilization of social media as a sports gambling industry as a whole. I think like the idea of better launching was a huge step in the right direction, and it really brought a lot of, eyeballs, you could say, onto the effectiveness of social media. But I think operators are really starting to come around to the power that is resulted from influencers and marketing on these platforms, and that there still is a lot of growth to be had. There's a lot of focus that needs to continue to be had on social media in the coming years.
Okay, so if you had to score the industry from 1 to 10, what would you give us as an industry today?
In terms of like focus on social media, or?
Yeah, in terms of sort of understanding, maximizing the potential that sits in social media?
I would say right now we're at about a 6, maybe a 5.
5 or 6. And if you look outside of gaming, if you take, whatever, clothing, travel, whatever you want to do, other industries, like how are they doing compared to gambling? Are we significantly behind, or is it the same outside of gaming as well in your view?
No, I'd say the sports gaming industry is pretty behind. I'd say collectively outside of it, I'd give it more of like an 8. In some spaces a 10, some a 7. Yeah. But the sports gambling industry, to be clear, really didn't even take social media into consideration until 12 months ago. So there's a lot of focus that needs to be had, and a lot of growth to be had in that sphere. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And you obviously sit in the sports space predominantly, I guess. So how does these replies differ, and what's your view on sort of the iGaming space for micro-influencers and social media in general? Is there the same potential? I mean, we speak a lot about. Yeah, in sports there is so much to talk about. There's always new matches happening, new games happening. There's scores leading up to the season, after the season, all these kind of things. Whereas in iGaming or in the casino poker space, it's much more static, and therefore it's harder to build a conversation around that. What's your view on this?
Yeah, well, the thing about iGaming is it's a lot harder to market to iGaming players, because like what does an iGaming player do specifically? How do you really reach them? Whereas sports fans are likely sports gamblers. It's a lot easier. That being said, the lifetime values of iGaming players is significantly higher. So it's a very lucrative sector of the market.
So you're saying sorry, Troy. So you're saying from a targeting perspective. So if you want to target sports bettors, you simply just tick sports, and then you're relevant to that audience.
And the likelihood of them wanting to gamble on sports is pretty high. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the second you move into the iGaming space, at least last time I checked on Facebook or any of the platforms, there is no tick box called casino or poker, right? I mean, so you need to tap.
Well, let me ask you, Michael. Put yourself in a marketer's shoes for an instance. How would you target an iGaming player? Let's say I'm a casino player. What do I do every day that's different than anyone else? And how do I get to that person? How would you do it?
Yeah, I mean, contextually, it's a lot more difficult, right? So you use obviously sort of the demographics you wish to target, the location, the age group, et cetera. But in terms of context, at least what I've seen in Europe, it's typically you go down the route of gossip, news, food, cars, these kind of groups.
Like a wide net. It's a very wide net.
Super wide. It's super wide. It's very difficult to target. Your sports is much easier on the targeting side. I fully agree with you.
Yeah, but back to kind of the U.S. in the iGaming market. If the sports gambling market's in the third or fourth industry, the iGaming market's still in the first or second. It's very new. It's only legal in 6 states. People are really just coming around to it, and the notion of what iGaming really even is. A year ago, I didn't even know you could play slots online. So there is a lot of growth to be had in that sector. I think what recently happened with Twitch and streamers is going to be a huge opportunity for targeting iGaming players. Back to kind of what we were laughing about just a second ago. In my opinion, the most effective way to reach like casino players online is through streamers. Because if you're watching someone play slots on a stream or blackjack, the likelihood that you're going to want to play yourself is extremely high. So I think that's an avenue that's extremely targeted. And now with this recent news with Twitch and how it's going to be regulated in the U.S. and it's going to be run by FanDuels and DraftKings and compliant, operated, regulated companies, that's a huge opportunity for everyone, really.
Yeah, let's talk about that, right? So for anyone who have been stuck under a rock for the last month, let's recap a bit for the audience, Troy. What's the timeline for Twitch in the last couple of months? What has happened in the gambling space?
So if you hadn't already seen it in the last year, you haven't read about it, there was a world of slot streamers and online casino players on Twitch that were being funded by these semi-gray area, let's call them, crypto-based iGaming casinos, and it exploded on Twitch, and it became probably the most viewed area of Twitch, where there were hundreds of millions of hours of content being consumed of people playing slots on this platform. And it was big business, and the streamers were making a lot of money, and the kind of gray area casinos were probably making even more. And this went on for over a year, and it exploded. Drake was involved. Some of the biggest influencers and celebrities in the world were involved. And about 3 to 4 weeks ago, overnight, Twitch came out with a nuke and basically said that any streams that were being funded and were promoting these gray area semi-unregulated casinos like Stake and like Rollbit and Roobet, effectively overnight were going to be seized, and streamers were not going to be allowed to promote these casinos, which completely flipped the industry on its head. You had a status quo of streamers making millions, casinos making millions, and hundreds of millions of hours of content being consumed, and overnight they basically said, you cannot do it anymore. So from a Twitch side of things, that completely changed the market. On the US side of the iGaming market, it, in my opinion, created an unbelievable opportunity that has not been capitalized on just yet. This news is really just coming out, but an opportunity for the regulated iGaming casinos that FanDuel hosts and that MGM hosts and that DraftKings hosts to kind of step in to this streaming market that was extremely lucrative and extremely targeted for casinos, and really do it the right way, with the right compliance language and with the right text and targeting the right fans and making sure it's done in a regulated fashion. But from a business side, I think it's a massive opportunity in the U.S.
Fully agree with you. There is a massive opportunity here, but I guess if we look at, so first of all, let's talk numbers, right? So you mentioned a lot of it, but so in 2021, on the slots category, Twitch did 283 million hours consumed on the slots category, and in 2022, they were well on track to 400 million hours consumed on the slots category. I think so. Last year we used to be like sort of 13th, 17th place on Twitch. This year we broke the top 10 barrier, and sort of I think we landed at sort of 7th, 8th place at some point of the most popular category on Twitch. And then this nuke, as you described it, came in, and over the last sort of 3 to 4 weeks, we've seen sort of like estimates of 70 to 80% drop off in traffic, more or less overnight. So definitely an opportunity, but I guess. So again, like let's try and think on behalf of the brands, right? So if you are an operator, a casino brand that have utilized streaming, and like you said, I mean, these streamers were paid, rumor has millions, right?
In some cases, tens of millions.
Very, very big bucks we're talking about here. And I guess the business case for the operator is that they had global reach, right? So if you went on Twitch, anyone on Twitch, regardless of where you're located, would see your brand and would be a potential consumer for you, obviously subject to you being able to register that player, et cetera, et cetera. Now, moving into the license space, so especially in the US, so let's say an operator would have a license in New Jersey. How would they would not, like the business case for paying tens of millions or millions or whatever the amount is for a streamer to be exclusive to you is kind of disappearing a little bit, I would say, as the reach goes down significantly, or you're targeted to only a certain region or whatever. Like how do you see that? So I mean, let's take the macro picture. There are only 6 iGaming licenses to be had in the US today. Yet going on Twitch, so that leaves 44 states that you cannot onboard that player with, so to speak. So how do they make the economics work, or do you think the streamers will have to take a significant pay cut over the coming 6 to 12 months? What's going to happen here?
So like I said, it's a huge opportunity. I didn't say it was an easy one. There's a lot of moving parts here. Like there isn't any new industry, I guess. But in terms of the U.S. operators, I think a couple things need to happen. The first off is the streamers. It was oversaturated. The streamers were being paid too much money. It was ungodly amounts of money that they were making for these streams. That's going to need to take a haircut, which the streamers are going to have to do if they want to continue working with these companies and promoting a product and streaming slots, which a lot of them really enjoy doing. That being said, for the operators, in my opinion, it kind of takes you back a little bit to 2019, even early 2020 in the sports gambling market, where getting there first was so important. Whereas like there's a reason outside of just like a great user interface that FanDuel and DraftKings have the majority of the market share here in the U.S. And it's because they got there first. They were there first in every single state, promoting, bringing in customers, building their market share. And then you look at the numbers today in the more mature New Jersey markets where they're not advertising as much, they still have a stronghold over the amount of users that are gambling with them. Yeah. I think Twitch is another example of a new segment, a new sector with iGaming that whoever gets there first, in my opinion, is going to reign supreme when the dust settles. And that even if FanDuel or whichever operator it is has to overspend at the start to sign these streamers when there's only 6 states that gamblers can be involved in, getting that exclusivity and getting that brand name out there is going to be pivotal once the market actually matures. So I think they're going to have to overpay in the short term, but it's going to be very valuable in the long term.
Okay. So you're saying as an operator, there is an opportunity right now to go out and sign some of these big name streamers that has the following, take a loss on that investment, but for the greater good over the long term, so to speak. But you capture the names, you make the deals before anyone else does, basically. But that's on Twitch specifically. I mean, I guess it would still be quite big checks that would have to be written in that case if you want to go exclusive with a streamer. And on Twitch, if I was the operator, I would still feel that there's a significant amount of risk on what are they going to do next. Are they going to ban it completely? Am I going to lose that investment completely? Or we're seeing all the new platforms popping up, or well, they're not new, but they're the gambling
trying to get some credibility.
Are moving shop. It seems D-Live is the short-term winner, at least in terms of where the most people go. But I agree on the opportunity, but is there also a significant amount of risk sitting here for the operators, or how should they navigate this, you think?
Yeah, there's absolutely a risk associated with it. We're talking about Twitch, which literally overnight changed that entire industry with the snap of a finger. So to say that they couldn't change it again would be foolish. That being said, in the press release that they released to everyone, they were very specific in the language that they wrote, stipulating that basically you have to be a licensed, controlled, regulated casino in the U.S. in order to be able to be streamed on Twitch, which is, in my opinion,
not only U.S. though.
Yeah, correct. And you're right. Well, I'm focused on the U.S., but you're right. It's worldwide, absolutely. So to me, I read that is pretty clear as to what kind of operator you need to be in order to legally and to follow Twitch's TOS stream on that platform. But there certainly is risks associated with putting all your eggs in that basket. But from my point of view, I think the opportunity far outweighs the risk.
Yeah. And what's going to happen now? So now some of these guys are just shifting from Twitch to D-Live, for example. And we were jokingly saying before the call, at least we get some background music pumping again that Twitch didn't have before.
It's nice to not have it muted the whole time.
It's not so much such a muted experience, exactly. But we were talking about sort of comparing the two sort of ecosystems, Twitch versus a D-Live or any other sort of other space that might pop up now, and how would you compare and contrast Twitch versus D-Live, for example, and any pluses or minuses looking at this from an operator perspective, I guess?
Yeah, I think that it's really difficult to build out and bring an audience to a new platform when one is already so dominant in the space like Twitch is. There's a number of examples, I don't know if I alluded to it on this call, of YouTubers creating their own platform to make their own videos, which were unregulated, and they could post whatever they want, whatever music. And even with their massive audiences, it still didn't work, and they still ended up going back to YouTube, just because it's so powerful, and you have that kind of cross-segmentation of people who are on Twitch for maybe gaming or for another reason, seeing a slot stream, and then now joining in. That's a new fan, that's a new audience you can tap into. Whereas a place like D-Live, I would imagine 90 to 95% of the audience that is actually going on to DLive daily is there to watch slot streamers. Like that's why you're on that website. So in the beginning, it may be good and it may drive customers, but over time, that audience is kind of going to become saturated, in my opinion, because you're not bringing in new audience. It's just the same one over and over again. And I think that will be shown in the kind of conversion numbers that these streamers are driving for stake and for Rollbit. And in time, I think that's going to start to affect how much stake and these companies are paying the streamers. Because at the end of the day, it's a business and they're not just handing out money. There's a reason they're doing it. So I think in the short term, DLive is a big winner. I think it was brilliant what they did to really kind of bolster this new market of slot streaming. But I think over time, people will start to trend back towards Twitch just because it's a superior platform. Yeah.
Okay. So if I had to put myself in the place of one of these streamers as a creator, so to speak. So if we look at Twitch, we're saying that it's going to be segmented. You need to be licensed in operator in order to stream, and I guess therefore the target market is shrinking, and to make a business case to pay streamers millions is disappearing by the day. I would assume on Twitch, so it's definitely getting increasingly difficult. On the other hand, you have then you can say on DLive today it's still the wild wild west. They can do whatever they want. But it's a much more gambling heavy audience that you'll probably find there that is literally only there for gambling streams. It's very condensed. You're not really attracting a lot of new blood into that world. And there would be a lot of cannibalization sort of shifting between the brands.
Yeah, and it's also risky. It's also riskier. Streaming a kind of gray area casino on an unknown, probably semi-unregulated platform presents its own level of risk to these streamers. Maybe even just from a legal standpoint. If you live in the U.S. and you're using a VPN to stream, stake on DLive, like you could be opening yourself up to, a slew of issues. So my recommendation, I would say, to the streamers is that even though it's a pain in the ass to get legal and licensed in the U.S. and regulated, and you have to fill out a lot of paperwork and do it that way, it's worth it in the long run, because if you're doing things in a compliant way and in the correct way, not many people are going to want to go through that, and the market is so lucrative here in the States that those that do kind of go that extra mile and take that extra effort to do it right, it's going to pay dividends in the long run.
So by that you mean that the streamers themselves should apply to become an affiliate,
a
licensed affiliate in each state?
Yes, so like the kind of framework and structure of what it's going to take to be a licensed streamer in the U.S. is still very much so up in the air. I believe that it's going to require streamers to get gaming licenses the way that I do as a marketing company to promote sportsbooks and iGaming. That process it's semi-difficult. There's a lot of paperwork involved. There's some interviews. There's things that go into it, but it is doable. And it would be my recommendation to the streamers to go that extra mile, to take that step, to get licensed in the U.S., because the ones that are going to have like a monopoly on the streaming market with these operators.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. But I think no matter how we look at it, I mean, Twitch is going to get segmented, more difficult paperwork, license applications, what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
DLive is a very small pond, at least at this stage. I mean, who knows what's going to happen over the coming months? But no matter how I look at it, at least today, the streamers are going to take a pay cut. They have to. The operators cannot justify these big checks in this new world that we're living in.
Yeah, the world of $10 million bags for streaming 3 times a week, I think are a thing of the past for sure.
Yeah, I agree. But if we just take a step back sorry, I had another question actually. So one thing I've noticed as well is, so if you look at let's call it European streamers or streamers that are typically based here or targeting Europe, it's all about slots. But when you look at Drake streaming on stake, if you look at some of the Barstool sessions or whatever it is, it's typically table games. It's still the roulette game or these kind of things. So, like, what's happening with slots in the US? Is it not cool to stream slots? Is it is it still an 80-year-old woman sitting in the corner with a bag of coins kind of image? Or
maybe at the casino, that's very much so the case. But in terms of online gaming, I think the European market is just more mature, and people have had time to not only play table games, but then play slot games and get into it. But another huge factor is actually the games that are being offered. The European casinos have partnerships with Evolution Gaming, and they can offer those like Crazy Time and those like unique, like streamed live kind of slot-like games that are really fun and are attractive to people. And they create better slots that are more intriguing to the customer, and makes European gamers more interested in slots. Whereas I think in the U.S., the slot providers are still very young, I guess, and they haven't created and mastered that next generation of slot that's very interactive for the player. So I think when they do start to do that, and these companies start to partner with Evolution Gaming and start bringing in those interactive next generation slots, you're going to see a tick up in U.S. players streaming and playing slots.
Yeah.
It'll be cooler.
I mean, definitely Evolution is a big player, right? But I alluding to your point, I guess it's more like the pool of available games to play in the US. Obviously, a lot of the providers that are already live in Europe are still playing catch up in terms of getting their licenses, getting their paperwork, getting their game certified, etc., etc. So the options for a slots player is much more limited in the US today versus in Europe. So as that content pool builds up, we have European operators. I think the biggest number I've seen is someone advertising they have 8,000 slots to choose from online, right? And
they're fun and they're unique, and they engage more to the slot than just like the traditional 777. Whereas if you look at the U.S. games, they're boring. They're not new. They're not unique. Not yet, but they're going to get there, and you're going to see that take up.
Yeah, and I think I heard the average number in the U.S. is about 600 slots, so 8,000 versus 600, just to give some sort of idea between the two states. All right, so slots have a bit of an image problem in the U.S. And is not appealing so much to the younger crowd yet. But let's see if we can do something about that. All right, last but not least. What does it take to be a successful creator or streamer, you think? Let's take Twitch or DLive or whatever. If you want to get into the streaming space, what is, in your view, the, top 3 success criteria to be a great streamer? Yeah.
There's no one given answer that's a sure success, formula. It's really, I like to call it, it's like half science, half art. You have to be creative. You have to do things differently. One area that is synonymous with every single successful streamer and influencer alike on social media is consistency. If you're not consistent with the content you're producing day in and day out, year after year, the likelihood of you becoming popular and a successful influencer and streamer is small. That's one thing that is synonymous with every single successful influencer is consistency. Other areas where I see people start to grow from kind of that 0 to 1 is finding a niche. You have to find something that's a little bit different, a little bit unique. Trying to create a national Twitter account where you post all things sports is really difficult because you're competing with ESPN, you're competing with Barstool. But kind of creating a social media account or a stream that's targeted towards one specific team or one specific area or one specific part of a game or a sport, you can kind of find this more unique market that might be more susceptible to your content. And then you can grow it from there. So although there's no sure way to do this, I recommend finding your niche, being extremely consistent, and focusing on learning. If you don't have the money, learn how to work Photoshop and create good graphics and professional looking content, or partner with SGG and we'll help you do it. But creating good content is extremely important.
Yeah. All right, so you have to be willing to live with one view on your stream for a year, and then maybe the hockey stick effect comes in further down the line.
Exactly.
All right, cool. Thanks for that. So let's finish off with the last question from my side, Troy. So within the micro-influencer / streaming space, if you have to make some predictions 2 years out from today, so when we're sort of just about to enter 2025, 24, end of 24, how does this space look like? Will consumers still love this space? What's happening? any predictions? Let's see if we can find 3 predictions.
First one, I think that the influencer space will continue, especially in the sports gambling space, and iGaming will continue to grow rapidly. You're going to see a lot more Book It with Trents and Marcos and social media stars emerge. The community will get bigger. There will be more accounts. There will be more influencers. There will be more followers. And operators will continue to become more involved with these influencers. That will happen. More money will be invested into this marketing medium, and operators will get more involved. My second prediction is you're going to start to see more Penn National Barstool Sports acquisitions, where operators, or some of them are going to get smart and wise up to how cost effective it is to spend X amount of dollars up front, but then own this network. And you're going to see more of these companies start to acquire these smaller social media networks and influencers and databases to have access to those markets. That would be my second one. My third one, I'd have to think of another prediction. I think that the streaming market in terms of Twitch and iGaming, 2 to 3 years from down the line, will be bigger and better than ever. Because once you take away the kind of gray area of, oh, I'm a big celebrity, but do I really want to work with Stake? I'm not sure. And then all of a sudden it's licensed and it's regulated and it's run by FanDuel, you're going to see some of the biggest stars in the world get involved in it. And it's going to be a massive, massive opportunity and a massive market.
Cool.
So, 3 predictions.
Fantastic. And with that, Troy, I think from my side, thank you so much for your time. I don't know if you have anything you would like to end up with, or if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way of reaching SGG or Troy?
Yeah, you can look at our website. It's sggmedia.com. You can also check out any of our social handles. They're all SGG_HQ. We post unbelievable sports content, casino content, sports gambling content. We're very involved with that community. So if you want to get in touch with us, that'd be the best way.
Cool. Sounds good. Troy, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a great conversation. I learned a lot. Look forward to following your success over the coming years.
Great. Well, thank you, Michael. This was a blast. Good talking to you.
Great. Have a good day. See you.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
Bye.